The Underdog's Gambit. The vast chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with anticipation. Beings from 1,000 worlds filled the tiered seating, a kaleidoscope of forms and colors. At the center, High Counselor Vexthor, a towering insectoid, raised his primary limbs for silence. Esteemed colleagues, his voice reverberated through the hall. We face a crisis. The void plague spreads unchecked. Our current ships cannot outpace it. We need innovation, a breakthrough. Thus, we announced the Grand Design Competition. The winning vessel will become our new defense against the plague. In the human quarter, Sarah Chen sat bolt upright, her mind racing. At 28, she was the youngest engineer ever sent to represent Earth at the Galactic Council. Not that it mattered much. Humans were seen as primitive newcomers, barely worth acknowledging. But Sarah knew better. She'd been working on a revolutionary propulsion concept, one that could change everything. As the counselors filed out, she approached her supervisor, Dr. Emerson. "Sir, I want to enter the competition," Sarah declared, her eyes shining with determination. Emerson sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. "Sarah, be realistic. We're here to observe and learn, not to compete with species that were crossing galaxies when our ancestors were still figuring out fire." "But my star-dancer design is untested theory," Emerson cut her off. "We can't risk Earth's reputation on a wild guess." Sarah bit her lip, frustration building. She'd faced this dismissal her entire career. Too young, too idealistic, too human. But this time was different. This time, she knew she was right. Back in her cramped quarters, Sarah pulled up the holographic schematics of the star-dancer. The ship's sleek form rotated slowly, its unique geometry unlike anything in the current galactic fleet. At its heart lay her breakthrough, the quantum fold drive. "They'll see," she murmured, fingers dancing through the projection, refining, adjusting. "I'll make them see." Days blurred into weeks as Sarah worked tirelessly. She requisitioned parts under false pretenses, borrowed lab time in the dead of night, and pored over alien engineering texts most humans couldn't even read. The star-dancer took shape in her mind, then in simulations, and finally, piece by painstaking piece, in reality. Sarah converted her entire living space into a makeshift workshop, sleeping on the floor surrounded by components and tools. One night, as she welded a particularly tricky section of the hull, a shadow fell across her work. Sarah looked up, startled, to see Zaxlor, the station's maintenance chief. The Palaxian's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, taking in the chaos of her room. "So this is where all my missing equipment has been going," Zaxlor chittered, mandibles clicking in amusement. Sarah's heart sank. "Zax, I can explain." The alien held up a clawed appendage. "No need, little human. I've been watching you. Your determination. It reminds me of myself, long ago, before." He trailed off, gaze distant. Then, refocusing, "I will help you." And so an unlikely partnership was formed. Zaxlor's centuries of experience complemented Sarah's innovative theories. Together, they solved problems that had stymied Sarah for weeks. The star-dancer began to take true form, no longer just a dream, but a tangible reality. As the competition's deadline loomed, word of Sarah's project spread through the station. Most dismissed it as human folly, but a few watched with growing interest. Among them was Carthel, the Zenthi representative, known for his ruthless pursuit of technological superiority. One cycle before the submission deadline, Sarah and Zaxlor made final preparations in a restricted hangar bay. The star-dancer gleamed under harsh lights, its unconventional design a stark contrast to the utilitarian Galactic Council vessels surrounding it. "She's beautiful," Sarah breathed, running a hand along the smooth hull. Zaxlor nodded, his usual stoicism softened by pride. "Indeed, but will she fly?" Before Sarah could respond, the hangar doors hissed open. Carthel strode in, flanked by security drones. His face tentacles writhed with barely contained anger. So the rumors are true, he snarled. The human dares to enter our competition with this abomination. He gestured dismissively at the Stardancer. Sarah stepped forward, chin raised defiantly. This abomination will outperform anything you or the Council has ever seen. Carthel's eyes narrowed. Bold words. But I think not. Your entry is hereby disqualified. Security, impound this vessel and arrest these saboteurs. As the drones advanced, Sarah felt a moment of despair. Had it all been for nothing? Then she felt Zaxlor's claw on her shoulder, steadying her. No, Sarah declared, her voice ringing through the hangar. You can't do this. By galactic law, all species have the right to submit designs. You're afraid, Carthal. Afraid that a primitive human might actually succeed where you failed. The Zenthi's face darkened with rage, but he hesitated. Sarah pressed her advantage. Let the Stardancer compete. If I'm wrong, you lose nothing. But if I'm right, we might just save countless lives from the Void Plague. For a long moment, tension crackled in the air. Then, slowly, Carthal lowered his hand. The drones retreated. Very well, human, he hissed. Enter your ship. But when it fails, and it will fail, remember that you brought this humiliation upon yourself and your entire species. As Carthal stormed out, Sarah let out a shaky breath. Zaxlor chittered softly. Well played, little one. But now comes the true test. Sarah nodded, turning back to the Stardancer. In a few hours, they would present to the Galactic Council. Everything she'd worked for, everything she believed about human potential, would be put to the ultimate test. As she ran through final checks, a small part of her wondered, had she just made the biggest mistake of her life, or was she about to change the course of galactic history? The answer lay among the stars, waiting to be claimed. Trials and tribulations. The grand auditorium of the Galactic Council buzzed with excitement. Representatives from hundreds of worlds crowded the tiered seating, their varied forms creating a living tapestry of alien life. At the center stage, a holographic display showcased the competition entries, sleek warships, bulky carriers, and exotic designs that defied easy classification. Sarah Chen stood in the wings, heart pounding. The Stardancer's schematics floated before her, a final chance to review before her presentation. Beside her, Zaxlor's mandibles clicked rhythmically, a Palaxian gesture of nervous anticipation. Next, boomed the announcer's voice, presenting for Earth. Sarah Chen and the vessel designated Stardancer. Taking a deep breath, Sarah strode onto the stage. A ripple of murmurs swept through the audience, surprise, amusement, and in some cases, clear disdain at seeing a human presenter. Esteemed Council, Sarah began, her voice steadier than she felt. I present to you a ship that will revolutionize space travel and our fight against the Void Plague. The Stardancer. With a gesture, she expanded the holographic display. The Stardancer's unique form rotated slowly, its sleek lines and unconventional geometry drawing gasps from some of the more technically minded attendees. At the heart of the Stardancer is the quantum fold drive, Sarah continued, highlighting the ship's core. This engine doesn't just move through space, it manipulates the fabric of space-time itself, allowing for near-instantaneous travel across vast distances. The murmurs grew louder. From his high seat, Vexthor leaned forward, compound eyes glittering with interest. Impossible, called out a voice from the Zenthi delegation. Carthal rose, face tentacles writhing. The energy requirements alone would are fully accounted for, Sarah interrupted smoothly. The Stardancer utilizes a zero-point energy tap, drawing power from the quantum vacuum itself. This declaration caused an uproar. Zero-point energy was theoretical at best, considered by most to be nothing more than a physics thought experiment. Vexthor's voice cut through the chaos. These are bold claims, human. Do you have proof? Sarah's heart raced. This was the moment of truth. We do, High Counselor. The Stardancer is complete and ready for a demonstration flight. Silence fell over the auditorium, broken only by the soft whir of recording devices. Then, from the back of the hall, a new voice spoke, gravelly and ancient. "I will pilot this vessel." All eyes turned to see Admiral Genva, the legendary Arcturian fleet commander. His craggy, stone-like face was unreadable as he made his way to the stage. "Admiral," Vexthor cautioned, "this untested human technology is exactly what we need." Genva finished. "I've seen 1,000 ships in my time. This is something new." And so, against all protocol and precedent, the entire Galactic Council adjourned to the launch bay. The Stardancer sat ready, its hull gleaming under the harsh lights. Sarah felt a mix of pride and terror as she watched Admiral Genva inspect the ship. "Interesting," the old warrior muttered, running a gnarled hand along the hull. "Very interesting indeed." As the Admiral boarded, Sarah turned to the assembled council. "The Stardancer will now demonstrate its folding capability by jumping to the Horsehead Nebula and back. A journey that would take a standard ship weeks to complete." Excitement and skepticism warred on the faces of the gathered aliens. Sarah's gaze met Carthal's. The Zenthi's eyes blazed with a mixture of anger and fear. The launch bay doors opened, revealing the star-studded blackness of space. With a hum that seemed to vibrate reality itself, the Stardancer's engines came to life. There was a moment of utter stillness, then the ship vanished. Gasps and cries of astonishment filled the bay. Sarah held her breath, eyes fixed on the empty space where the Stardancer had been. Seconds ticked by, feeling like an eternity. Suddenly, alarms blared. The station's sensors had detected an incoming object, moving at impossible speed. The Stardancer burst back into normal space, halting with precision before the astonished crowd. As Admiral Genva emerged from the ship, his typically stoic face bore an expression of pure wonder. "In all my centuries," he breathed, "I've never experienced anything like it." It was transcendent. The council erupted into chaos. Shouts of acclaim, demands for explanations, and accusations of trickery all blended together. Above it all, Vexthor's voice rang out. "Silence. It seems we have much to discuss. This council will recess to evaluate the Stardancer's performance. Ms. Chen, you and your team will remain available for questioning." As the councilors filed out, still arguing heatedly, Sarah felt a mixture of elation and anxiety. They'd proven the Stardancer worked, but would it be enough? Hours passed in a blur of technical debriefings and intense questioning. Sarah explained and re-explained the principles behind a quantum fold drive until her voice grew hoarse. Through it all, she could sense the shifting dynamics. Some council members were clearly won over, while others grew increasingly hostile to the idea of such a radical advancement coming from humans. Finally, after what felt like days, the council reconvened. The grand auditorium hummed with tension as Vexthor took the central podium. After careful deliberation, the High Counselor began. "This council has reached a decision. The Stardancer's performance is unprecedented. Its potential to combat the Void Plague cannot be ignored." Sarah's heart soared, but Vexthor wasn't finished. "However," he continued, "we cannot ignore the risks posed by such a powerful and untested technology. Therefore, we propose a compromise." The room held its breath as Vexthor outlined the council's decision. The Stardancer would be granted a provisional acceptance. It would undergo a series of carefully monitored missions, proving its worth in real-world scenarios. If successful, full production would begin, with the technology shared among all council races. As the pronouncement ended, the auditorium exploded into a frenzy of reactions. Sarah stood still, processing the outcome. It wasn't total victory, but it was a chance, a foot in the door for humanity. She felt a hand on her shoulder and turned to see Zaxlor, his alien features somehow conveying pride. "Well done, little human," he chittered. "But our work is just beginning." Sarah nodded, her mind already racing with the challenges ahead. The Stardancer had proven itself in a controlled test, but now they faced the ultimate trial, the unforgiving crucible of space itself. As she left the auditorium, Sarah caught sight of Carthal. The Zenthi's face was a mask of barely contained fury. Their eyes met, and Sarah read the unspoken message clearly. This isn't over. With a mixture of determination and apprehension, Sarah realized that the true battle for the Stardancer's future, and perhaps humanity's place in the galaxy, was only just beginning. The grand unveiling. The Stardancer hung in space, a gleaming testament to human ingenuity against the backdrop of stars. Sarah Chen stood at the ship's viewport, her reflection ghostly in the transparent aluminum. Behind her, the bridge hummed with activity as her small crew, a mix of humans and aliens who believed in the project, made final preparations. "All systems green," reported Zaxlor from the engineering station, his multiple limbs dancing across the controls. "Quantum fold drive is primed and ready." Sarah nodded, taking a deep breath. This was it, the Stardancer's first official mission under Galactic Council observation. A convoy of refugee ships needed escort through a dangerous sector known for pirate activity. It was a perfect test of the ship's capabilities, and a chance to prove its worth in a real-world scenario. "Attention, Stardancer," a voice crackled over the comms. "This is Overseer Lax Tull of the Galactic Council observation team. You are cleared to proceed with the mission. Remember, we will be monitoring every aspect of your performance." "Understood, Overseer," Sarah replied, keeping her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. "Stardancer acknowledges and is moving to escort position." With a thought transmitted through her neural link, Sarah guided the ship into formation alongside the lumbering refugee vessels. The Stardancer moved with a grace that belied its size, its unconventional design allowing for maneuvers impossible for traditional ships. As they entered the notorious Scarlet Expanse, a region of space known for its crimson nebula and lawless inhabitants, tension on the bridge ratcheted up. Sarah's eyes flicked constantly between sensor readouts and the swirling red gases outside the viewport. "Contact," barked Kira, the human tactical officer. Multiple signatures emerging from the nebula. Configuration matches known pirate vessels. Sarah's mind raced. This was the moment of truth. "Zaxlor, prepare for a microfold." "Kira, plot an intercept course that will put us between the pirates and the convoy." The crew acknowledged, their movements precise and practiced. Sarah took a moment to appreciate how far they'd come, from a ragtag group of believers to a cohesive unit ready to face whatever the galaxy threw at them. "Pirate vessels are charging weapons," Kira reported, her voice tense. "They're targeting the lead refugee ship." "Execute microfold now," Sarah commanded. The universe seemed to hiccup. In an instant, the Stardancer vanished from its position and reappeared directly in the path of the oncoming pirate fleet. The sudden appearance of the sleek, unknown vessel caused visible confusion among the attackers. "Open a channel," Sarah ordered. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing a scurred Vraxian pirate captain, his tentacled face contorted in surprise and anger. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Stardancer," she announced, her voice ringing with authority. "You are in violation of Galactic Council law. Stand down immediately or face the consequences." The pirate captain's laughter was like grinding stones. "A single ship dares to challenge us. Your bravery is admirable, but foolish. Prepare to be boarded or destroyed." The channel cut off. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. They took the bait. "Zaxlor, initiate Defense Protocol Omega." "Kira, target their propulsion systems. Disable, don't destroy." What followed was a display of ship-to-ship combat, unlike anything the observing council had ever seen. The Stardancer danced between enemy vessels, its quantum fold drive allowing it to appear and disappear at will. Precision shots from its advanced weaponry disabled pirate ships one by one, while its revolutionary shielding system shrugged off return fire. In the observation vessel, Overseer Lax Tull watched in awe. By the cosmic winds, he breathed, it's not just a transportation breakthrough. It's a complete reimagining of space combat. Back on the Stardancer's bridge, Sarah coordinated the battle with calm efficiency. Microfold to Sector 3 Gamma, she ordered. Kira, prepare to fire on my mark. The ship blinked out of existence, reappearing behind the pirate flagship. A barrage of precisely targeted energy pulses lashed out, overloading the larger vessel's systems. Within moments, the pirate captain's face appeared on the viewscreen again. This time, his expression one of defeat and grudging respect. We surrender, he growled. Never seen anything like your ship, human. You fight with honor. As galactic peacekeepers moved in to secure the disabled pirate vessels, cheers erupted from the refugee convoy. Messages of gratitude flooded the Stardancer's comms. Sarah allowed herself a moment of pride, but knew the real test was yet to come. Hours later, the Stardancer docked at Galactic Council headquarters. Sarah and her core team stood at attention as a delegation of high-ranking officials boarded for inspection. Among them was Carathel, the Zenthi representative who had been so dismissive of the project from the start. Overseer Laxtol stepped forward, his typically stern face softened with what might have been admiration. Captain Chen, your ship's performance was extraordinary. You've not only completed your mission but redefined what we thought possible in space combat and rescue operations. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled dignitaries. Even Carathel remained silent, though his face tentacles writhed with barely contained emotion. The Council will need time to fully analyze the data from this mission, Laxtol continued. But speaking unofficially, I believe you've more than proven the Stardancer's worth. Expect a full commission and request for additional units very soon. As the delegation departed, Sarah turned to her crew. Zaxlor's mandibles clicked in the Palaxian equivalent of a grin. Kira pumped her fist in quiet celebration. The rest of the team, human and alien alike, shared looks of triumph and relief. We did it, Sarah said softly, allowing the reality to sink in. The Stardancer is going to change everything. But even as she basked in the glow of their success, a part of Sarah's mind was already racing ahead. The Stardancer had proven itself, yes, but this was just the beginning. New challenges, new frontiers, and perhaps new dangers awaited them in the vast expanse of the galaxy. As if reading her thoughts, Zaxlor placed a clawed appendage on her shoulder. What's next, Captain? He chittered. Sarah's gaze drifted to the viewport, where countless stars beckoned. A smile tugged at her lips. Now we really get to work. The Stardancer hummed softly around them, ready for whatever the universe had in store. Baptism by fire. The celebration of the Stardancer's success was short-lived. Just days after the pirate encounter, alarms blared throughout Galactic Council headquarters. Sarah Chen raced to the emergency briefing, her mind already running through possible scenarios. The council chamber was a hive of nervous energy. High Counselor Vexthor's normally composed demeanor was shaken as he addressed the assembled leaders. We've received a distress call from the Andromeda Science Outpost, Vexthor announced, his mandibles quivering. They report a massive void plague outbreak. Thousands of lives are at risk, and the infection is spreading rapidly. A holographic map flickered to life, showing the location of the outpost. On the very edge of charted space, Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The Andromeda outpost was weeks away by conventional travel. We need a response team there immediately, Vexthor continued, but our fastest ships would take days to arrive. By then, he trailed off, the implication clear. All eyes turned to Sarah. She stood, her voice steady despite the weight of expectation. The Stardancer can be there in hours. A ripple of hope passed through the chamber, quickly tempered by caution. Admiral Genva, who had become a staunch supporter of the Stardancer project, spoke up. This is beyond anything we tested. The quantum fold drive has never attempted a jump of this magnitude. We don't have a choice, Sarah countered. Every moment we delay, more lives are lost. After a tense debate, the council agreed. The Stardancer would attempt the rescue mission, but not without safeguards. A small team of council observers would accompany the crew, including, to Sarah's dismay, Carthel. As they boarded the ship, Sarah could feel the Zenthi's disdain radiating off him in waves. "Try not to doom us all with your human recklessness," Carthel sneered. Sarah bit back a retort, focusing instead on the mission ahead. The bridge hummed with nervous energy as the crew took their stations. Zaxlor's claws danced over the engineering console, making final adjustments to the quantum fold drive. "All systems are go, Captain," he reported. "But I must warn you, a jump of this distance, there are many unknowns." Sarah nodded, her face set with determination. "Noted, but those people need us. We have to try." She took a deep breath, then gave the command, "Initiate quantum fold." The familiar hum of the drive filled the ship, rising to a pitch that made everyone's teeth vibrate. Stars outside the viewport began to stretch and blur. Then, with a sensation like reality itself hiccuping, they were gone. The jump lasted both an instant and an eternity. When they emerged, the Andromeda outpost loomed before them, a massive structure orbiting a blue giant star. But something was wrong. "By the cosmic winds," breathed Kira from Tactical. "The Void Plague. It's worse than we thought." The station was surrounded by a shimmering, oily blackness that seemed to devour light itself. Tendrils of the darkness reached out, grasping at nearby ships and debris. "Life signs," Sarah demanded, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Faint, but present," Kira reported. "Concentrated in the central hub. But Captain, the plague is adapting faster than anything we've seen before. It's almost as if it's evolving." Sarah's mind raced. They had to act fast, but charging in blindly could doom them all. "Zaxlor, can we use the quantum fold drive for short-range teleportation? Get a team directly into the hub." The Palaxian's mandibles clicked rapidly, his species equivalent of wide-eyed surprise. "Theoretically, yes, but the risks are less than doing nothing," Sarah finished. She turned to the council observers. "I'm leading a team in. We'll evacuate as many as we can." Carthel stepped forward, his face tentacles writhing. "This is madness. You'll bring the plague back with you." "Not if we're careful," Sarah countered. She outlined her plan, using modified personal shield generators to create a quantum barrier around each team member. It wasn't foolproof, but it was their best shot. To everyone's surprise, Carthel volunteered to join the away team. "Someone needs to ensure humanity doesn't doom us all," he said, but there was a glimmer of something like respect in his eyes. Minutes later, Sarah led her team, a mix of her crew and council observers, onto the teleportation pad. The air around them shimmered with the glow of their quantum shields. "Remember," she said, her voice tense, "we get in, we get the survivors, we get out. No heroics." With a nod to Zaxlor, who manned the controls, they vanished. They materialized in the station's central hub, a scene of chaos and terror. Survivors huddled behind makeshift barricades, terror etched on faces of a dozen species. The air itself seemed alive with malevolent purpose. Tendrils of void plague probing, searching for weaknesses. "Move," Sarah shouted, spurring her team into action. They began herding survivors towards their position, the quantum shields flickering as they repelled the grasping darkness. But it wasn't enough. For every person they saved, another fell to the plague. Sarah watched in horror as an Arcturian scientist, just steps from safety, was enveloped in writhing blackness. His scream cut off abruptly as he simply ceased to exist. "We can't save them all," Carthel growled, his usual disdain replaced by grim determination. "We have to go. Now." Sarah knew he was right, but every fiber of her being rebelled against leaving anyone behind. As they prepared for emergency teleport, a sound cut through the chaos, a child's cry. Without thinking, Sarah sprinted towards the sound. She found a young Palaxian, no more than a hatchling, cowering beneath a fallen bulkhead. Tendrils of void plague writhed mere inches away. Time seemed to slow. Sarah knew her shield wouldn't hold if she tried to reach the child. She could hear Carthel shouting for her to come back. But in that moment, only one thing mattered. Sarah deactivated her shield and lunged forward. She scooped up the Palaxian child, feeling the cold touch of the plague on her skin. With every ounce of strength, she threw the child towards Carthel. The Zenthi caught the hatchling, his face a mask of shock and admiration. As darkness began to engulf Sarah, she locked eyes with Carthel. No words were needed. In that moment, human and Zenthi understood each other perfectly. Sarah Chen closed her eyes, prepared for oblivion. Instead, she felt a surge of energy. Her eyes snapped open to find herself on the Stardancer's teleport pad, gasping for air. Zaxlor stood at the controls, all four of his eyes wide with effort. How? Sarah managed to croak. Inverted the quantum field. Zaxlor chittered weakly, used the plague's own energy signature against it. Nearly burned out the drive, but he trailed off, mandibles clicking in relief. As medical teams swarmed the pad, treating survivors and checking for plague contamination, Sarah caught Carthel's eye. The Zenthi nodded once, a gesture of profound respect. Perhaps, he said softly, there is more to humans than I thought. Sarah managed a weak smile before exhaustion overtook her. As she drifted into unconsciousness, she knew that everything had changed. The Stardancer had faced its trial by fire and emerged transformed. The battle against the Void Plague was far from over. But for the first time in a long time, the galaxy had hope. And it had come from the most unexpected of places, a small determined crew led by a human who refused to give up. As the Stardancer limped back towards Council space, carrying a precious cargo of survivors and newfound respect, Sarah Chen dreamed of stars and of the challenges that still lay ahead. A new era dawns. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with an energy unlike anything in recent memory. Representatives from every member species packed the tiered seating, their usual formalities forgotten in the wake of recent events. At the center of it all stood Sarah Chen, still bearing faint scars from her encounter with the Void Plague, but her eyes shining with determination. High Counselor Vexthor raised his primary limbs for silence, the chamber gradually falling quiet. "We are gathered here," he began, his voice carrying a weight of history, "to address the unprecedented actions and achievements of the Stardancer and its crew." Sarah stood tall, flanked by Zaxlor and the rest of her team. She could feel the eyes of the galaxy upon them, some filled with admiration, others with lingering skepticism. "Captain Chen," Vexthor continued, "your mission to the Andromeda outpost was nothing short of miraculous. You not only saved countless lives, but demonstrated a level of courage and innovation that, quite frankly, we did not expect from humanity." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Sarah caught sight of Admiral Genva, nodding approvingly from his seat. However, Vexthor's tone grew serious. "Your actions also raised grave concerns. The quantum fold technology, while revolutionary, has proven to be more powerful and unpredictable than we anticipated. Some among us fear that humanity may not be ready for such responsibility." Sarah's heart sank. After everything they'd accomplished, would the Council still dismiss them? To her surprise, it was Carthel who spoke up next. The Zenthi representative, once her fiercest critic, stepped forward. "Esteemed colleagues," he began, his face tentacles moving in complex patterns, "I once shared those fears. I believe humans to be reckless, primitive, unworthy of a place among us." He paused, his gaze sweeping the chamber before settling on Sarah. "I was wrong." A collective gasp went through the assembly. Carthel continued, his voice growing stronger. "I witnessed Captain Chen risk her life to save a child, not of her species, not even of her world. In that moment, I saw the true potential of humanity. Their drive, their compassion, their willingness to defy impossible odds. These are qualities our galaxy desperately needs in the face of the Void Plague." The chamber erupted in discussion. Sarah stood, stunned by the unexpected support. She caught Zaxlor's eye, the Palaxian's mandibles clicking in what she now recognized as a smile. Vexthor raised his limbs again for order. Your words carry great weight, Representative Carathal. But the question remains, how do we proceed? Sarah took a deep breath. This was the moment she'd been waiting for. If I may, High Counselor. Vexthor nodded, gesturing for her to speak. The Stardancer was never meant to be just one ship. Sarah began, her voice clear and confident. It was meant to be the first of many, a new class of vessel that could unite our worlds in exploration, defense, and in the fight against threats like the Void Plague. She activated a holographic display, showing schematics for an entire fleet of Stardancer-class ships. But more than that, I propose a joint initiative. Let the quantum fold technology be shared, studied, and improved upon by all our peoples. Together, we can unlock its full potential and face whatever challenges the universe has in store. The assembly hall fell silent as her words sank in. Then, slowly, approval began to spread. Species that had long been rivals found themselves nodding in agreement. The possibility of a truly united galactic effort was tantalizing. Vexthor's compound eyes seemed to sparkle with something like hope. A bold proposal, Captain Chen. One that will require extensive discussion and planning. But I believe it is one worth pursuing. He turned to address the full council. I call for a vote. All in favor of establishing the Quantum Fold Initiative, with humanity as full and equal partners. The response was overwhelming. Species after species signaled their approval. Even those who had been skeptical of humanity's readiness found themselves swayed by the potential for advancement and unity. As the final tally was announced, cheers erupted throughout the chamber. Sarah felt a wave of emotion wash over her, relief, pride, and a profound sense of responsibility. Vexthor's voice cut through the celebration. It is decided. Captain Sarah Chen, you and your crew will oversee the expansion of the Stardancer program. You will work alongside the best minds from every world to refine and implement this technology across our united fleet. He paused, his mandibles twitching in what Sarah had come to recognize as a smile. Furthermore, in recognition of your extraordinary service, I hereby grant humanity full membership status within the Galactic Council. Your voice will be heard in all matters that shape our shared future. The applause was deafening. Sarah felt Zaxlor's claw on her shoulder, squeezing gently in congratulations. Carthal approached, extending a tentacle in the Zenthi gesture of respect. You've earned this, Captain, he said softly. Now let us see what humans can truly accomplish. As the ceremony concluded, Sarah found herself looking out at the stars through the chamber's massive viewport. The galaxy spread before her, vast and full of possibility. The road ahead would not be easy. The Void Plague still loomed, and countless other challenges awaited. But for the first time, she felt the full weight and potential of a united galactic community. Captain. Zaxlor chittered beside her. The crew is assembled. They're waiting for your orders. Sarah smiled, turning away from the viewport. Tell them to prepare for launch. We've got a lot of work to do. As she walked towards the Stardancer's docking bay, Sarah Chen felt the eyes of the galaxy upon her. Humanity had taken its first true steps into a larger universe, and she, along with her diverse crew of dreamers and innovators, would be leading the way. The stars beckoned, full of promise and peril in equal measure. But with the quantum fold drive humming beneath her feet and the combined knowledge of 1,000 worlds at her fingertips, Sarah knew that they were ready for whatever lay ahead. A new era had dawned for the galaxy, and humanity, once dismissed as primitive newcomers, now stood at its forefront, ready to face the unknown with courage, compassion, and the indomitable spirit that had brought them to the stars.